Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. Today, we're going to break down the Maker's 46. Now, this isn't the cast strength version, this is just the baseline version. But man, tell you what, I love this pour. This is actually one of my favorite restaurant pours, especially when I'm in Ohio or Northern Kentucky. I see it pretty consistently. But when you go through the price list or you're asking the waiter and waitress for how much the pours are, this one always comes across as a value. Why am I going to spend 20 bucks on something when I can get this for like 8 to 10 bucks? I'm going to get the Maker's 46 every single time. But with that said, let's see how it equates to the scoring system. Let's see how this thing is going to wrap up in the review. So let's break it down together. Let's kick off the show. Thanks for joining, everybody. All right. So we got a Maker's Mark bottle. We're going to pour this into a Trev Glen here. Cheers to the whiskey wrench. The other thing that throws me off, I guess there's actually two things that throw me off about this. A, am I remembering this wrong? Or was this always in the standard Maker's bottle? Wasn't this in even the non-cast strength version was once in the private select shape bottle, right? Like it's usually not in this one. I haven't bought one of these in a while, at least the non-cast strength version. So when I was looking at it, I was like, how long have you been in the regular Maker's bottle? On top of that, the other thing that kind of threw me off too, you got the wax top and the screw top. For some reason, I was expecting a cork. I just equate the waxing to having a cork, but it's a screw top. Nothing against screw tops. I love screw tops, but the breaking this one down too, if you aren't familiar with the Maker's 46, this comes in at 94 proof and it is finished with French oak staves. So, I mean, really, I think Maker's 46 would be my first French oak finish now that I'm thinking about it. I'm getting that more and more often, um, especially with some Nulus that I've had and I guess some MGP products in general. The Architect, when it comes to Penelope, you're getting the French oak finish, but I think the Makers is kind of the OG of the French oak finish with the French oak staves. But as I said off the top here too, man, do I get this at restaurants quite a bit. Between this and the Knob Creek 9 year, that's usually my go-to pour because I can get it for 8, 9, $10 for a pour. That's great for a restaurant pour. Man, I struggle spending anything more than that sometimes. It's usually Wild Turkey 101, Maker's 46, or the Knob Creek 9 year. Well, let's break this one down. We're going to go through the nose and the palate, and then we'll get into the score. Thanks for joining today, everybody. Cheers. So, on the nose here, this nose is pretty simplistic. I would equate it to essentially burnt wheat toast. Um, not entirely burnt. Maybe the crust is just burnt, but it's got kind of a bit of a char on that wheat toast. And then it's smothered with um, like some honey flavored butter. And that brings just a little bit of a depth to it. And then there's a little bit of pepper too. So maybe you did some fresh cracked pepper on top of that toast. There are some fruits back there. Sometimes I go back and forth on whether I'm getting fruits on this thing or not. Um, Today I'm leaning towards an apple. Ah, maybe even into a pear a little bit. So just a little bit of fruitness, but for the most part, it is that burnt toast sensation is the main thing on the nose. The nose is probably my least uh, impressed part of this experience is going to come from the nose. So let's get into the palate so I can enjoy myself a bit more. So lovely. So up front, generally sweet, dark leaning. So gonna have some brown sugar, still got that burnt crust. There is a chocolate powder to it. I'd equate it to chocolate quick powder to be specific. And then there's some cinnamon as well. So mostly dark leaning flavors. And I think the chocolate part of it's coming from that French oak finish. The mouthfeel too is just okay. I'm just gonna say it's just kind of average in general when it comes to the mouthfeel. Mid palate, still going with the toasted wheat bread sensation. There is still some fudge coming through, kind of a fudge drizzle. Um, Cinnamon applesauce is another note that I throw out there. So that kind of equates with what was getting on the nose. I'm gonna go in for another sip here. I think there's some more to break down. Man, a lot of barrel spice there. Still getting the pepper. Um, there is a vanilla cream there, and this is a note that I keep coming back to. And I don't know if I've just drilled it in my own head psychologically or whatnot with these French oak finishes, but I continue to get essentially a devil's food cookie. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look at your local store, see if you can find devil food. That is a note that I associate entirely with my childhood. I don't think I've had a devil food cookie in probably 20 to 25 years, but that's still how much it sticks out to me there. Mm. Man, mid palate's where it really, really shines. Let's get into the finish. Mm. The finish again is all that devil's food cookie. Now, when I'm talking about the devil's food cookie, if you were unaware, the devil's food cookie has a middle layer that is essentially a chocolate cookie, a dark fudgy chocolate brownie, even kind of a texture of the cookie. It's then got an outside layer of vanilla cream and then an outer coating of a harder chocolate. Oh man, it tastes so much like that to me. One of these days, I'm gonna have to do it side by side. Maybe I'm gonna have to do a whiskey mutant thing where I'm pouring some Maker's 46 on top of the Devil's Food cookie. That's actually a pretty good idea. I'll get to bring that up later. Um, there's also just this the texture of it on the finish is very nice. It's just soothing and oily, even more so than how it really felt initially when it came to the mouthfeel. It does bring it more on the finish, and it's just a soothing softness, more of a sensation than a note, but just something to note. Like I'm getting it now, even like I'm not getting like flavors, but I'm getting like the soothing sensation as you know it kind of crawls down the throat. Hmm. I'm gonna go in for one more sip, see if I find anything else, and let's break this one down. No, I essentially think that does it. On that sip too, mid palate, I guess it's just a combination of notes that I've already said. There is a dance going on between the chocolate note. I mentioned chocolate quick and cinnamon. I mentioned a few times. I think I combined it with an applesauce sensation here. But if I do separate those two, it does have a little bit of a Mexican hot chocolate sensation with that cinnamon and that chocolate. That's another angle that I think you can take on this one, all of which is fun. I mean, these are a lot of fun flavor notes for something that, I think this ran me $35. I think it's right in that range. Well, let's get into the scores here. So here to Hello Again Whiskey Friends, we do break down our scores into three overall categories. There's a whole bunch of metrics behind the scenes here that go into each of these, but ultimately this is a good way to summarize it. Flavor, experience, and value. Value, we're all the points. 10 out of 10, here in this case, 100, when you look at it this way. Now, the flavor, the only thing that really holds it back a little bit is kind of the nose. I don't think the nose really hints at what it's bringing on the palate when it comes to the chocolate, when it comes to the cinnamon. So that holds it back a little bit. And then the experience, I wasn't getting a whole lot of mouthfeel. Maybe I'm negating a little bit of the complexity here, but I think I'm fine with where this netted out in the end. At a 70, very good pour. I mean, just a good pour that everyone should try out here. I think this is just a standard for me, and I'd buy this over the regular makers, 10 out of 10 times. So when it comes to a recommend, yeah, this is a 10 out of 10. This is one that I recommend to people. And when I'm at restaurants with people, I'm like, Jeff, what should I order? Order what I'm ordering. I'm just getting the Maker's 46, usually the best value on the menu when it comes to a pound for pound pour. Do I plan to buy another? Yeah, I plan to buy another. It took me a little bit to go back to the 46% Maker's 46. I've been getting the cast strength here for the last 2 years. I'll probably go back to the cast strength. Man, do I love the cast strength one too. That one gets more points than this. But man, it also costs like twice as much. So you got to put that into consideration as well. But that's where I'm landing on the baseline Maker's 46. I think this is one that everyone should have on their bar in a regular rotation. I think it's just a great go-to pour. Well, thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. I'll catch you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you